The whole policy of the Australian government through the Department of Aboriginal Affairs is to retard the progress of the Aboriginal people.
As a little girl, Maxine Bennell watched her father Eddie, the chair of the National Aboriginal Consultative Committee, fight for Aboriginal rights and against deaths in custody. By the time of his death in 1991, months before the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody handed down its final report, he'd thought his job was done.
I believe that my dad would have thought that this would have been all finished, looked after properly in regards to that the Royal Commission was happening and hopefully less deaths in custody.
But he was wrong. 20 years later, Maxine buried her son Jayden after he died in prison.
I think my father would have felt very angry, and I think my dad really never would have imagined it would have impacted his grandchildren. Never.
The Royal Commission had recommended prisons be screened to eliminate or reduce the potential for harm. There are at least half a dozen hanging points in the room where Jayden Bennell was found.
I want no more kids to die in prison because we don't have a death sentence in Australia, and I don't care what they do wrong. Even if they are in there, no one should either get the chance to kill themselves in times of sadness, in a split-second thought. No one should ever get that chance because 5 minutes later it's better.
20-year-old Jayden was in jail for stealing cars, a mandatory sentence under WA's 3 strikes policy. Mandatory sentencing has been found to erode one of the key principles of the Royal Commission, that imprisonment be used as a sanction of last resort. Instead, Jayden Bennell was part of a new generation of Indigenous people who've lived and died behind bars, in the shadow of that historic document.
What if I have another son who dies in prison because not one recommendation has been put into place? That is a real big fear.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
I am the mother of a child named Jalika. The worst thing is that I know that she is no longer here with me. I still have no answers. I still don't know how or why she died.
She was always happy. I can't remember seeing her angry or sad, she's always with a smile on her face.
Miss Jew's face has become a symbol of the problem recognised before she was even born. In August 2014, she was locked up at WA's South Headland Police Station for unpaid fines. 2 days later, she was dead from a fatal infection stemming from a cracked rib.
No one deserves to die over $1,000 worth of fines, unpaid fines, let alone any amount of unpaid fines. It's a blatant breach of human rights. The whole system needs to be held accountable.
Police took her to hospital 3 times in 48 hours, but no one picked up the signs that she was dying, dismissing her as a junkie who was faking it. The inquest into her death is just wrapped up, and her family are now anxiously waiting for answers.
We don't want recommendations come out of an inquest that will not be acted upon, just as the recommendations from the Royal Commission. There's 339. Roughly about only 20% have been implemented Australia-wide.
Miss Jew was born a year after the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody released its final report. One of its recommendations, an ongoing amnesty for long outstanding unpaid fines, arguably could have saved her life. At the time of the Commission's final report in 1991, Aboriginal people were 8 times more likely to be imprisoned than non-Aboriginal people. They're now 15 times more likely. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander men are twice as likely to be in prison than university. And despite representing only 3% of the population, Indigenous Australians now make up 27% of the prison population, almost double their representation in 1991.
Incarceration has only increased, but what we've seen is the particular incarceration increasing of Aboriginal women. So Aboriginal women are now recognised as the fastest growing prison population of Australia. In our state of West Australia, Aboriginal women are making up at least 50% of the prison population and have done so for many years now.
Aboriginal lawyer Hannah McGlade believes the Royal Commission's recommendations and principles have been forgotten.
Aboriginal people are a minority in the country, and we rely on the goodwill of our fellow Australians to really stand with us and say, this has to stop, and we have to treat each other, as humans, as equal people with respect.
Many of the 339 recommendations were designed to boost living conditions in Aboriginal communities and hand back decision-making to Indigenous people. Report after report has highlighted the gap is far from closing. And those who've lost relatives to the crisis identified a quarter of a century ago fear that unless those issues are addressed, a growing number of Aboriginal people will live and die behind bars.
Jalika was not an animal. She was a 22-year-old woman, a young lady, and it doesn't matter if she was black or not. It's angering, very angering. We've had to hold our anger back and direct it for the cause, which is what we've done to our best. We will not stop fighting.
I don't want anyone to feel the way I do. It is horrible. I've not been able to move forward in 3 years. I've not been able to. Even my little sister says you're angry all the time, Of course I'm angry. My son shouldn't be dead.